Now that you know what a container concept is, let's look at what a container is technically. So technically, a container is made up of images. So we have layers of stacked images on top of each other, and at the base of most of the containers you would have a Linux-based image, which is either Alpine with a specific version, or it could be some other Linux distribution. And it's important for those base images to be small. That's why most of them are actually Alpine, because that will make sure that the containers stay small in size, which is one of the advantages of using a container. So on top of the base image, you would have application image. And this is a simplified diagram. Usually you would have these intermediate images that will lead up to the actual application image that is going to run in the container. And of course, on top of that, you will have all this configuration data. So now I think it's time to dive into a practical example of how you can actually use a Docker container and how it looks like when you install it and download it and run it on your local machine. So to give you a bit of an idea of how this works, let's head over to Docker Hub and search for PostgreSQL. So here, which is a Docker official image, I can see some of the versions, and let's say I'm looking specifically for older version, I don't know, 9.6 something. So I'm going to pull that one. So this is a Docker repository, so that I can actually go ahead and pull the containers from that repository directly. And because it's a public repository, I don't have to log into it. I don't have to provide any authentication credentials or anything. I can just get started with a simple Docker command without doing or configuring anything to access Docker Hub. So on my terminal, I can just do Docker pull. I can even do Docker run and then just copy the image name. And if I don't specify any version, it will just give me the latest, but I want a specific version. So I'm gonna go with 9.6 actually, just to demonstrate. So I can provide the version like this with a colon, and I can start run. So as you see, the first line says unable to find image locally. So it knows that it has to go to Docker Hub and pull it from there. And the next line says pulling from library Postgres. And here you see a lot of hashes that says downloading. And this is what I mentioned earlier, which is Docker containers or any containers are made up of layers, right? You have the Linux image layer, you have the application layers, and so on. So what you see here are actually all those layers that are separately downloading from the Docker Hub on my machine, right? And the advantage of splitting those applications in layers is that actually, for example, if the image changes or I have to download a newer version of Postgres, what happens is that the layers, they're the same between those two applications. Two versions of Postgres will not be downloaded again, but only those layers that are different. So for example, now it's gonna take around 10 or 15 minutes to download this one image because I don't have any Postgres locally. But if I were to download the next version, it will take a little bit less time because some layers already exist on my local machine. So now you see that it's already logging because this command that I ran here, the Docker run with the container name and version, it fetches or it pulls the container, but it also starts it. So it executes the start script right away as soon as it downloads it. And here you see the output of the starting of the application. So it just gives some output about starting the server and doing some configuration stuff. And here you see database system is ready to accept connections and launcher started. So now let's open the new tab and see with Docker PS command, you can actually see all the running containers. So here you see that Postgres 9.6 is running, and it actually says image. So this is another important thing to understand when we're talking about containers.